Iron stands at the edge of the ceremonial circle, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird desperate for freedom. At 24, he possesses the delicate beauty typical of his Omega status, soft features, gentle eyes the color of autumn leaves, and hair that catches the moonlight like spun copper. But there's something different about Iron, something that has always set him apart from other Omegas. While they present themselves with downcast eyes and submissive postures, Iron holds his head high, his gaze direct and unwavering. This quiet confidence has always made him stand out, though tonight he wonders if perhaps it's been his greatest mistake. The pack has gathered in full ceremony, nearly 300 wolves in their human forms arranged in concentric circles around the sacred bonfire. The flames dance toward the star-scattered sky, casting shifting shadows across the faces of the assembled wolves. Ancient songs echo through the forest, sung in the old tongue that speaks of bonds and destiny, of Alpha and Omega, of the moon goddess who weaves the invisible threads that connect soul to soul. At the center of it all stands Rolled Ironclad, the alpha heir whose very presence seems to command the attention of every wolf present. He's everything an alpha should be, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that seems to absorb the firelight and eyes like winter storms. His features are sharp and aristocratic, befitting his status as the future leader of the pack. When he moves, it's with the fluid grace of a born predator, every step calculated and purposeful. The pack looks to him not just with respect, but with the kind of reverence reserved for those who hold the power of life and death in their hands. But there's something cold about Rolled, something that has always made Iron's skin crawl even as his Omega instincts responded to the alpha's power. Unlike other alphas who at least pretended to care for their pack members, Rolled has always been openly disdainful of anyone he considers beneath him. His ambitions are well known. He doesn't just want to lead the Shadow Hill pack. He wants to expand their territory, to conquer the neighboring communities and establish an empire built on werewolf supremacy. The pack elder raises his gnarled staff, and the assembled wolves fall silent. His voice carries the weight of centuries as he speaks the ritual words that have been unchanged since the founding of their pack. Tonight, under the blessing of the full moon, the goddess will reveal the bonds that bind soul to soul. Let those called by fate step forward and claim their eternal destiny. Let no wolf stand between what the moon goddess has decreed. Iron feels something stir in his chest, a pulling sensation that grows stronger with each passing moment. Around the circle, other wolves are beginning to move, drawn by invisible threads toward their destined partners. The air is thick with anticipation, with the electric charge that comes when destiny is about to be fulfilled. The pull grows stronger, and Iron finds himself taking a step forward, then another. His bare feet are silent on the soft earth as he follows the invisible thread that seems to be drawing him inexorably toward the center of the circle, toward Rolled. The realization hits him like a physical blow. Of all the alphas in the pack, of all the possible matches the moon goddess could have chosen, his fated mate is the one wolf who has never shown him anything but contempt. The irony is almost too much to bear. The Omega who has always been different, always been an outcast, bound to the alpha who represents everything he despises about pack hierarchy and rigid tradition. But the pull is undeniable. The silver thread of their bond becomes visible in the moonlight, stretching between them like spun starlight. This is the moment Iron has dreaded and longed for in equal measure since he first understood what it meant to have a fated mate. This is when his life changes forever. Rolled's eyes find his across the fire, and for a moment, Iron sees something flicker in those storm-gray depths: recognition, perhaps even surprise. But then the alpha's expression hardens, his face becoming a mask of disgust and contempt. An Omega? Rolled's voice booms across the grove, loud enough for every wolf present to hear. Each word hits Iron like a physical blow, more devastating than any wound he's ever suffered. And one without a hereditary line, no less. I will not bind myself to filth. Let the moon herself tear apart this blasphemy. The world seems to slow as Iron watches Rolled reach up and grasp the silver thread that connects them. His face is hard, emotionless, as if the bond between them means nothing more than an inconvenience to be disposed of. With one sharp, deliberate motion, He tears the bond apart and spits at Iron's feet, the saliva landing on the earth like a final insult. I reject you, Rold declares, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. You are not worthy to stand beside an alpha. You are not worthy to carry the future of this pack. You are nothing. The pain is indescribable. It feels like someone has reached into Iron's chest and ripped out half his soul, leaving jagged edges that burn with every breath. The severed bond doesn't just hurt, it leaves him feeling fundamentally wrong, as if part of his very essence has been torn away. But worse than the physical agony is the humiliation, the knowledge that his deepest shame has been exposed before the entire pack. Through the pack link, he can feel their emotions: shock, pity, disgust, and underneath it all, a terrible satisfaction from those who have always resented his quiet confidence. Some whisper among themselves, others stare openly at his humiliation. A few of the younger wolves actually laugh, cruel sounds that cut through the night air like blades. The Omega presumed too much, someone says, loud enough for Iron to hear. Did he really think he was worthy of an alpha like Rold? His mother must have corrupted his bloodline, another voice adds. How else could the moon goddess make such a mistake? But it's not just words. As Iron stands there, broken and bleeding inside, several of the Alpha Pack members step forward. The first blow catches him across the face, splitting his lip and sending him staggering. The second drives into his ribs, forcing the air from his lungs in a painful gasp. Corrupted blood. One of them snarls as he strikes. You've tainted our sacred ceremony with your presence. Your mother should have drowned you at birth. Another adds, his fist connecting with Iron's stomach. Save us all the embarrassment. They don't stop until Iron is on his knees, blood running from his nose and mouth, his body screaming with pain. Through it all, Rold watches with cold satisfaction, as if Iron's suffering is exactly what he deserves. Iron. The elder's voice is gentle, but underneath it, Iron can hear the disappointment, the resignation of someone who has seen this tragedy play out before. You have brought shame upon yourself and your bloodline. The Pack Council will meet to decide your fate. But Iron already knows what that fate will be. An Omega without a mate, especially one who has been publicly rejected and beaten, is seen as unstable, potentially dangerous. The old traditions are clear about such cases, and none of them offer much hope. The Pack Council meets the very next morning, and Iron is summoned to appear before them. The Great Hall feels cavernous and cold, filled with alphas and elders whose faces show nothing but disappointment and disgust. At the head of the table sits the pack leader, Rold's father, whose expression is as hard as stone. You have brought dishonor to our bloodline, the pack leader tells him bluntly. Your presence reminds everyone of weakness, of failure. The moon goddess herself has rejected you through her chosen alpha. There is no place for you here. They strip him of his family name first. He is no longer Iron Moon Whisperer of the Shadow Hill Pack. He is just Iron, unaffiliated, unwanted. Then they come for his possessions, the few things he has managed to accumulate over the years. Everything is confiscated, declared forfeit as payment for the shame he has brought upon the pack. But the worst is yet to come. As word of his rejection spreads through the pack, Iron finds himself facing a campaign of systematic humiliation that goes far beyond mere ostracism. Pack members who once treated him with casual indifference now go out of their way to make his life miserable. They contaminate his food with dirt and worse things, forcing him to go hungry rather than eat what they fouled. They destroy his sleeping area repeatedly, forcing him to find new places to rest each night. They follow him through the territory, throwing stones and insults in equal measure. Look at the rejected Omega, they call after him. Too weak even for an alpha who would take anyone. Maybe if you crawled on your belly like a proper Omega, one of them suggests with cruel laughter. Maybe if you begged prettily enough, someone might take pity on you. His mother, a gentle beta who has always been his strongest supporter, faces her own persecution. The pack accuses her of corrupting his blood through some imagined transgression, and she is demoted in status, forced to take on the most menial tasks as punishment for her son's failure. I'm sorry, she whispers to him one night, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry I couldn't give you a better bloodline, a better chance. It's not your fault," Iron tells her, though his own voice breaks with the words, "None of this is your fault." But even as he tries to comfort her, he can see the doubt in her eyes, the terrible question of whether she really is somehow to blame for his disgrace. After 2 weeks of this treatment, Iron makes the only choice he has left. In the dark hours before dawn, when the pack sleeps and the forest is quiet except for the whisper of wind through the pines, he gathers the few possessions they haven't destroyed and slips away from pack territory. He heads toward the mountain passes, toward the abandoned lands where no pack claims dominion, a wild place where exiles and outcasts go when they have nowhere else to turn. The journey is brutal. The mountain trails are treacherous, winding through landscapes that have been shaped by ancient magic and forgotten wars. The weather is harsh, with sudden storms that can drop temperatures below freezing in minutes. But perhaps most challenging of all is the spiritual desolation that surrounds these lands, a sense of being cut off from the natural world that all werewolves depend on for their strength and sanity. Iron finds shelter in the ruins of an old temple on the third night, using his remaining supplies to build a small fire in what was once a place of worship. The stone walls are covered with carvings in languages he doesn't recognize, telling stories of gods and heroes whose names have been lost to time. As he sits staring into the flames, he thinks about Rold's words, about the rejection that has torn his life apart. Was he really so worthless that even his fated mate couldn't bear the thought of being bound to him? The pain of rejection is still fresh, a constant ache in his chest where their bond should have been. But as the night wears on, something else begins to grow alongside it, a quiet, steady anger that burns hotter than any fire. The pack had taught him to see his differences as weaknesses, as evidence of his fundamental inadequacy as a wolf. But here in the wilderness, where survival depends on more than just raw power and rigid hierarchy, Iron begins to discover that his supposed weaknesses might actually be strengths. His gentle nature makes him sensitive to the subtle signs of danger that others might miss. His intelligence helps him solve problems that brute force cannot overcome. His empathy allows him to understand and communicate with the wild creatures that inhabit these mountains, forming alliances that help him survive where others would perish. He learns to hunt with patience rather than aggression, to find shelter in places others would overlook, to read the weather patterns and animal behaviors that spell the difference between life and death in this harsh environment. Most importantly, he learns that he is stronger than anyone, including himself, ever believed. It's during his second week in the mountains that Iron encounters the injured bat. He's searching for medicinal herbs near a mountain stream when he hears the sound of distressed squeaking coming from a crevice in the rocks. Following the sound, he finds a small creature trapped beneath a fallen stone. Not an ordinary bat, but something far more unusual. The creature is larger than a normal bat, with fur that seems to shimmer with an inner light and eyes that glow with intelligence. When it sees Iron, it doesn't flee or attack. Instead, it seems to be studying him, as if trying to determine whether he can be trusted. Iron carefully lifts the stone, freeing the trapped creature. One of its wings is clearly injured, hanging at an awkward angle that suggests a break or severe sprain. Without hesitation, Iron tears strips from his own shirt to create a makeshift splint, speaking to the creature in soothing tones as he works. "Easy there," he murmurs, his hands gentle as he tends to the injury. "I'm not going to hurt you. Let me help." The bat submits to his ministrations with surprising docility, as if it understands his intentions. Once the wing is properly splinted, Iron creates a small nest from soft moss and leaves, providing the creature with a safe place to rest while it heals. He's just finished settling the bat in its makeshift bed when he becomes aware of another presence nearby. The air grows cold despite the afternoon sun, and shadows seem to deepen around him without any visible cause. When he looks up, he finds himself face to face with something that should not exist, a vampire, standing in broad daylight as if the sun has no power over him. The vampire is tall and elegant, with pale skin that seems to glow with an inner light and hair as black as midnight. His features are aristocratic, almost inhumanly beautiful, with high cheekbones and a mouth that seems designed for both cruelty and kindness in equal measure. But it's his eyes that capture Iron's attention, deep red like fresh blood, ancient and knowing, holding depths that speak of centuries of experience. Interesting, the vampire says, his voice carrying the cultured accent of old nobility. A werewolf who shows kindness to my servants. How unexpected. Your servants? Iron asks, surprised by how calm he feels in the presence of this predator. Everything he's been taught tells him he should be terrified, should be running or fighting for his life. Instead, he feels oddly at peace, as if this encounter was always meant to happen. The creature you've just helped is one of my scouts, the vampire explains, nodding toward the injured bat. They patrol these mountains, keeping watch for threats to my domain. This one was caught in a rock slide yesterday. I've been searching for him since. The vampire steps closer, moving with fluid grace that makes no sound on the rocky ground. Up close, Iron can see that his clothes are expensive, tailored from materials that speak of wealth and power. Everything about him radiates authority and barely contain danger. I am a Lucrus, Lord of Noctarion, the vampire says, studying Iron with those piercing red eyes. And you are a werewolf alone in vampire territory, which is either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both. I'm Iron, he replies simply, and I'm not looking for trouble. I just wanted to help. Help. Alucris repeats the word as if it's a foreign concept, something he's not entirely sure how to interpret. When was the last time someone helped you? Werewolf? The question catches Iron off guard, hitting deeper than he expected. When was the last time? He can't remember. Even before his rejection, the pack's hierarchy had meant that Omegas were expected to serve others, not receive help themselves. And since his exile, he's been utterly alone. I don't remember, he admits, and something in his voice must reveal more than he intended because Alucris's expression softens slightly. Rejected, the vampire says, and it's not a question. I can smell it on you, the scent of a severed bond, of a heart that's been broken not by circumstance but by cruelty. Your own kind cast you out. Iron nods, unable to speak past the sudden tightness in his throat. He expects mockery or pity, but Alucris's expression remains neutral, merely curious. And what will you do now? Alucris asks. Winter is coming to these mountains, and survival alone is challenging, even for someone with your apparent resourcefulness. I'll manage, Iron says, though they both know how hollow the words sound. He's been in the mountains for 2 weeks, and already he can feel the strain. When the real cold comes, when the snows begin in earnest, his chances of survival will drop dramatically. Perhaps, Alucris says, or perhaps you'd be interested in an alternative arrangement. Something in his tone makes Iron look at him more carefully. What kind of arrangement? I am in need of a personal servant, Alucris says, his red eyes never leaving Iron's face. Someone to tend to my library, care for my more unusual residents, assist with various tasks around my fortress. The work would be demanding, but you would have food, shelter, and protection from those who might wish you harm. And what would you get out of it? Iron asks, his natural caution warring with desperate hope. Service, loyalty, and Alucris pauses, as if considering his words carefully. Entertainment. I have lived for many centuries, young wolf. Boredom is a more persistent enemy than any sword or spell. You intrigue me. An Omega who shows kindness to his enemies, who faces a vampire without cowering, who asks practical questions rather than begging for mercy. I find myself curious to see what you might become. The offer is tempting beyond measure. After weeks of cold, hunger, and loneliness, the promise of warmth and safety feels like a lifeline. But Iron has learned to be wary of offers that seem too good to be true. What would be the terms? He asks. What exactly would you expect from me? Honesty above all else, Alucris says immediately. I have no patience for lies or deception. Beyond that, competence in your assigned duties, discretion regarding what you see and hear in my domain, and… He pauses again, that strange smile playing at the corners of his mouth. An open mind. My household is not what your pack would consider normal. Neither am I, Iron says, and for the first time in weeks, he feels something that might be hope stirring in his chest. No, Alucris agrees, extending his hand. You are not. Do we have an agreement? Iron looks at the offered hand, then back at Alucris's face. In those red eyes, he sees something he hasn't seen from anyone in a very long time, genuine interest rather than judgment, curiosity rather than contempt. It's not kindness exactly, but it's not cruelty either. It's a chance which is more than he's been offered by anyone in months. We have an agreement, Iron says, taking the vampire's hand. The journey to Noctarian takes them deeper into the mountains than Iron has ever been. The path winds through landscapes that seem to exist outside of normal reality. Valleys where the mist never lifts, forests where the trees grow in impossible spirals, streams that flow uphill against all logic. The very air seems charged with magic, making Iron's skin tingle with energy. These mountains have been my domain for over 5 centuries, Alucris explains as they walk. The boundary between the mortal world and the realm of shadows runs through here, which makes it perfect for someone like me. Magic flows more freely, time moves differently, and the usual rules don't always apply. And you've been alone all this time? Iron asks, curious about this strange creature who has shown him more consideration in a single afternoon than his pack had in months. Not alone exactly. I have servants, companions of various kinds. But conversation, meaningful conversation, that has been in short supply. Alucris glances at him sideways. Most creatures are predictable in their wants and fears. They see a vampire and immediately assume they know everything about me, about what I want and how I think. But you, I what? You asked about terms and conditions before accepting my offer. You helped my scout without knowing who he belonged to. You're walking beside me now without constantly looking for escape routes or ways to ingratiate yourself. Alucris's smile is genuinely amused. You treat me like a person rather than a monster or a god. It's refreshing. The fortress, when they finally reach it, is nothing like what Iron expected. Instead of a dark, foreboding castle, Noctarian is built into the mountainside itself, its walls carved from living rock and its towers reaching toward the sky like natural formations. Windows glow with warm light, and gardens cascade down the terraced slopes in defiance of the harsh mountain climate. Magic, Alucris explains when he sees Iron staring. The fortress exists partially in the Shadow Realm, which allows it to be far more hospitable than these mountains would normally permit. Also more defensible, should the need arise. Inside, the fortress is even more impressive. The halls are vast but warm, filled with tapestries and artwork that speak of cultures from across the known world. Libraries stretch as far as the eye can see, their shelves lined with books in languages Iron doesn't recognize. Gardens flourish in impossible places, their flowers blooming in colors that shouldn't exist. But most surprising of all are the inhabitants. Iron expected to find a household of vampires, or perhaps human servants kept as cattle. Instead, he encounters a diverse collection of creatures that seem to have found refuge here, injured animals recovering in specially designed sanctuaries, scholarly beings pursuing research that wouldn't be welcome in the outside world, artists working on projects that push the boundaries of their respective mediums. Your rooms are in the East Wing, Alucris says, leading him through corridors lined with paintings that seem to move when he's not looking directly at them. A bedroom, a sitting area, and a small study where you can work on your assigned projects. They're simple but comfortable. The rooms are anything but simple. The bedroom is larger than any space Iron has ever had to himself, with a bed that looks like it could accommodate half a dozen people and windows that offer breathtaking views of the mountain valleys below. The sitting area is furnished with comfortable chairs and a fireplace that crackles with warmth. The study contains a desk, bookshelves, and writing materials that look expensive enough to feed a family for months. This is too much, Iron says, overwhelmed by the luxury after weeks of sleeping on cold stone. It's adequate, Alucris replies dismissively. You'll find clothes in the wardrobe. I took the liberty of having them prepared while we traveled. Dinner is served at sunset in the main hall. Your duties will begin tomorrow. What exactly will my duties involve? Iron asks as Alucris prepares to leave. Research, primarily. I have accumulated a substantial collection of texts over the centuries, many of them in languages that are no longer commonly spoken. Your natural intuition should help you understand context and meaning in ways that pure scholarship cannot. Alucris pauses at the door. There are also my more unusual residents to consider, creatures that require specialized care, research projects that need assistance, correspondence to maintain with various contacts across the realms. And the entertainment you mentioned? Alucris turns back, that enigmatic smile playing at his lips again. I have lived for over 800 years. Iron. Do you know how difficult it becomes to find conversation that doesn't bore you to tears after the first century? Most beings are so predictable, so limited in their thinking. But you, he studies Iron's face with those piercing red eyes. You might be different. Left alone in his new quarters, Iron takes stock of his situation. 3 weeks ago, he had been a pack member with a secure place in the world, even if it wasn't a particularly happy one. 2 weeks ago, he had been a broken exile with no hope and no future. Now he's the personal servant of a vampire lord, living in luxury he never could have imagined, with work that sounds genuinely interesting and challenging. It should feel like a dramatic improvement, and in many ways it does. But there's also an undercurrent of uncertainty that he can't quite shake. Alucris has been nothing but courteous, even kind in his own way, but he's still a vampire, a creature whose very nature is antithetical to everything Iron has been taught to believe in. Can he really trust someone whose motivations are so alien to his own? The answer comes over the following days as Iron settles into his new life. The work is every bit as engaging as Alucris promised. Ancient texts filled with wisdom and beauty, stories of civilizations that rose and fell before his pack was even founded, magical theories that challenge everything he thought he knew about the world. His natural empathy helps him understand not just the words, but the emotions behind them, the hopes and fears of scholars who died centuries ago. Alucris proves to be an excellent teacher and, surprisingly, a considerate employer. He never mocks Iron's ignorance when he encounters something unfamiliar, never makes him feel lesser for his lack of formal education. Instead, he seems genuinely pleased by Iron's curiosity, by his eagerness to learn and grow. You have an interesting mind, Alucris tells him one evening as they work together in the main library, translating a particularly complex philosophical treatise. Most werewolves I've encountered are all instinct and emotion, but you think before you act. You consider consequences. Is that why you chose me? Iron asks. Because I'm different from other werewolves? I chose you because you helped my scout without expecting anything in return, Alucris replies. Because you asked intelligent questions rather than just accepting whatever I offered. Because you're still here, working diligently, even though you could probably find a way to escape if you really wanted to. Why would I want to escape? The question surprises Iron even as he asks it. A month ago, he would have been horrified at the thought of living among vampires. Now, he can't imagine wanting to be anywhere else. Because I'm your natural enemy, Alucris says simply. Because everything you've been taught tells you that I'm a monster who will eventually betray or devour you. Because staying here means cutting yourself off from your own kind forever. My own kind rejected me, Iron says, and for the first time, the words don't carry the sting they once did. They made it very clear that I have no place among them. Here, I have work that matters, people who treat me with respect, a purpose that goes beyond just surviving from day to day. People? Alucris raises an eyebrow. You consider me people? Don't you consider yourself people? The question seems to catch Alucris off guard. He's quiet for a long moment, his pen poised over the parchment. Most creatures see me as either a monster to be feared or a legend to be worshipped. Very few see me as simply a person with his own thoughts and feelings and struggles. What do you struggle with? Iron asks, genuinely curious. Loneliness, Alucris admits after another pause. Boredom, the weight of too many memories, too many years of watching everything you care about crumble to dust. The constant need to be careful, to calculate every word and action because a single mistake could expose weaknesses that enemies would exploit. There's something vulnerable in his voice, something that makes Iron see him not as the powerful vampire lord, but as someone who has carried burdens for far too long without anyone to share them with. That sounds exhausting, Iron says quietly. It is. Alucris looks at him with something that might be gratitude. It's been a very long time since I could speak honestly with someone about such things. As autumn turns to winter, their relationship deepens from employer and employee to something more personal. They share meals together, work side by side in comfortable silence, and spend evenings by the fire discussing everything from ancient history to the philosophical implications of magic. Iron finds himself looking forward to these conversations, to the way Alucris's face lights up when they discuss something particularly interesting, to the rare moments when the vampire's careful control slips and he reveals glimpses of the person beneath the aristocratic facade. But it's during one of winter's worst storms that everything changes between them. Iron has been working late in the library, so absorbed in his research that he doesn't notice the time until the grandfather clock in the corner chimes midnight. When he finally looks up from his books, he realizes that the fire has burned down to embers and the room has grown quite cold. He's just beginning to gather his things when he hears a sound from the corridor outside. A low, pained moan that makes his blood run cold. Moving quietly to the door, he peers out to see Alucris stumbling down the hall, one hand pressed to his side, dark liquid seeping between his fingers. Alucris! Iron rushes to his side, catching the vampire's arm as he sways. What happened? Are you hurt? Hunters, Alucris says through gritted teeth. They found one of the entrances to the Shadow Realm. I had to discourage them from exploring further. Up close, Iron can see that the vampire's clothes are torn and blood-stained, and there's a gash across his forehead that's bleeding freely. More concerning is the way he's favoring his left side, and the pale, almost grayish tinge to his usually perfect skin. Come on, Iron says, slipping his arm around Alucris's waist to support him. Let's get you to your rooms. You need medical attention. I'll heal, Alucris protests. But he doesn't resist as Iron guides him down the corridor. Vampires always heal, given time. Not if you collapse from blood loss first, Iron says firmly. And definitely not if those wounds get infected with whatever those hunters had on their weapons. In Alucris's chambers, Iron helps him to the bed and begins examining his injuries. The gash on his forehead is superficial but messy, while the wound in his side is deeper and more concerning. When Iron probes gently at the edges, Alucris hisses in pain. There's something in there, Iron says, worry creeping into his voice. Some kind of foreign object. It's preventing the wound from healing properly. Silver, Alucris says weakly. They had silver weapons. My body won't heal around it. It needs to be removed. Iron has no medical training beyond basic first aid, but he's helped tend injured animals many times, and the principle is the same. Moving quickly, he gathers supplies: clean cloths, strong alcohol for sterilization, and a pair of thin-bladed knives that he can use as makeshift surgical instruments. This is going to hurt, he warns as he prepares to work. It already hurts, Alucris replies, though there's something almost like fondness in his voice. I trust you. The words hit Iron harder than they should. When was the last time anyone had said they trusted him? When was the last time he'd been needed, really needed, by someone who mattered to him? The surgery is delicate work, made more difficult by Alucris's occasional gasps of pain and the way his body tenses whenever the silver fragments shift. But Iron's hands are steady, his touch gentle, and slowly he manages to extract the foreign objects from the wound. The moment the last piece of silver is removed, the vampire's natural healing begins to kick in, the torn flesh knitting itself back together with visible speed. There, Iron says, sitting back with relief. That should do it. How do you feel? Better, Alucris says, and indeed, color is already returning to his pale features. Much better. Thank you. You don't need to thank me, Iron says, beginning to clean up the medical supplies. Anyone would have dash. No, Alucris interrupts. his hand catching Iron's wrist. Not anyone. Most people would have seen an injured vampire as an opportunity to be exploited, not a problem to be solved. You could have let me suffer, could have demanded payment for your help, could have used my weakness against me. Instead, you simply helped. There's something in his voice that makes Iron look at him more closely. In the vampire's red eyes, he sees emotions that take his breath away, gratitude. Yes, but also something deeper, something that makes his heart race in a way that has nothing to do with fear. Alucris, he begins, not sure what he wants to say. I should let you rest, Alucris says, releasing his wrist. But he doesn't move away, doesn't break eye contact. Instead, he reaches up with his free hand to touch Iron's face, his fingers tracing the line of his cheek with infinite gentleness. You're so beautiful, he whispers, and his voice carries a note of wonder, as if he's just discovered something miraculous.
So Kind, so brave.
How could anyone reject you? How could anyone fail to see what I see when I look at you? The words break something open in Iron's chest, some carefully constructed wall that he's been hiding behind since his rejection. All the pain, all the loneliness, all the desperate hope that he's been trying to suppress comes rushing to the surface. Don't, he says, his voice breaking. Please don't say things like that if you don't mean them. I can't take any more rejection. I mean every word, Alucris says, sitting up despite his recent injuries. Iron, these past months, having you here, talking with you, watching you work, it's been the happiest I've been in centuries. You've brought light into a life that had grown dark with loneliness. I'm just a rejected Omega, Iron protests. I'm nobody special. You're everything, Alucris interrupts, his hands framing Iron's face. You're intelligent and kind and stronger than you know. You're curious about the world, passionate about your work, gentle with every creature you encounter. You're exactly what I never knew I was looking for. The kiss that follows is soft and tentative, as if Alucris is afraid that Iron might pull away. But instead of retreating, Iron leans into the touch, his hands coming up to rest on the vampire's chest. The kiss deepens, becoming more urgent, more desperate, as months of unspoken attraction finally find their voice. When they finally break apart, both of them are breathing hard, their faces flushed with desire and emotion. I love you, Alucris says, the words coming out in a rush as if he's afraid that hesitation might rob him of courage. I know it's soon to say it. I know we come from different worlds, but I can't keep pretending that what I feel for you is just friendship or gratitude or curiosity. I love you, Iron. I love your mind, your heart, your courage, your kindness. I love the way you make me feel alive again after centuries of just existing. I love you too, Iron whispers, tears streaming down his face. I tried not to. I tried to tell myself it was just gratitude or loneliness, but I can't deny it anymore. You've given me everything. A home, a purpose, respect, affection. You've made me feel valuable again when I thought I was worthless. You were never worthless, Alucris says fiercely. Your pack was blind. Your former mate was a fool. And anyone who couldn't see your worth deserves nothing but pity for their stupidity. What follows is the most beautiful night of Iron's life. Alucris makes love to him with a reverence that leaves him breathless, treating his body like something precious and sacred rather than just a source of pleasure. The vampire's touch is cool against his heated skin, his strength carefully controlled to avoid causing harm. Every kiss, every caress, every whispered endearment reinforces the message that Iron is loved, valued, cherished. Mine, Alucris whispers against his throat as they move together. My heart, my light, my chosen one. Yours? Iron agrees, arching beneath him as pleasure builds to impossible heights. Always yours. In the morning, Iron wakes in Alucris's arms, feeling more complete than he ever has before. This isn't the desperate pull of a fated bond, but something he has chosen freely, something that belongs to him and Alucris alone.
No regrets.
Alucris asks, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on Iron's bare skin. None, Iron says, meaning it completely. Only wonder that it took us so long to get here. I wanted to be sure, Alucris admits. You'd been hurt so badly. I didn't want to rush you into anything you weren't ready for. And now I want to spend every remaining day of my very long life showing you how much you mean to me. Their relationship transforms from that point forward. They're still researcher and assistant during working hours, but in private, they're lovers and partners. Alucris shows Iron wonders he had never imagined, secret chambers filled with treasures from across the centuries, magical artifacts that respond to his touch, knowledge that has been hidden from the world for generations. But more than that, he shows Iron that he is worthy of love exactly as he is, not stronger, not different, not improved in any way, just himself. It's during the spring that they encounter Kyle. Iron has been exploring the ruins of an ancient settlement about 2 hours' travel from the fortress when he hears crying. Following the sound, he finds a small figure huddled in the shadow of a collapsed wall, a boy, perhaps 10 or 11 years old, with cuts on his arms and terror in his dark eyes. The child is human, but there's something unusual about him. His scent carries undertones that Iron doesn't recognize, and when he moves, it's with a grace that seems almost supernatural. But his tears are real enough, and the pain radiating from him is heartbreaking. "Hey there," Iron says softly, crouching down to the child's level. "Are you hurt?" The boy looks up at him with eyes too old for his face. "Are you going to hurt me too?" he asks in a voice barely above a whisper. "No," Iron says firmly. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Iron. What's yours?" "Kyle," the boy says after a moment of hesitation. "I don't have a family name. I don't have a family at all." The story comes out in fragments over the following hour. Kyle is half human, half fae, the result of a union between a human woman and a member of the Shadow Court. His mother died when he was very young, and he's been passed from relative to relative, none of whom wanted to care for a child who reminded them daily of otherworldly influence. "The last family said I was cursed," Kyle explains, showing Iron the fresh cuts on his arms. "They said half-blood children bring bad luck. They hurt me and told me to go away." Looking at this frightened, injured child, Iron feels something fierce and protective awaken in his chest. It's the same feeling he had when he found Alucris injured, the same instinct that drove him to help the vampire scout. The need to protect those who cannot protect themselves. "Well, they were wrong," Iron says firmly. "You're not cursed, and you don't bring bad luck. You're just different, and different doesn't mean wrong." "You really think so?" "I know so. Come on. Let's get those cuts cleaned and see about getting you something to eat." Iron brings Kyle back to the fortress, expecting to have to convince Alucris to let the boy stay temporarily. But when he explains the situation, the vampire's response surprises him. "He can stay," Alucris says immediately, kneeling down to examine Kyle's injuries with gentle hands. Half-fae children are rare and often misunderstood. It would be a crime to let him suffer for something he had no control over. "Really?" Kyle looks between them with hope beginning to replace the fear in his eyes. "I can stay here?" "If you want to," Iron says. "We can't offer you a traditional family, but we can offer you safety and care and people who won't hurt you for being different." That night, as they settle Kyle into a room near theirs, Alucris pulls Iron aside. "Are you certain about this?" he asks quietly. "Caring for a child is a significant responsibility." "I'm certain," Iron says without hesitation. "Alucris, I know what it's like to be rejected for things you can't help. I won't let that happen to him if I can prevent it. And what if his presence here attracts attention? Half-fae children have enemies, and not all of them will be impressed by our good intentions. Then we'll protect him," Iron says simply. "All of us together." Alucris studies his face for a long moment, then smiles. "You continue to amaze me, my heart. Yes, we'll protect him. All of us together." Kyle brings light into their lives in ways Iron hadn't expected. His initial fear gradually gives way to curiosity and then to genuine joy as he realizes that they truly mean to keep him safe. He's incredibly intelligent, absorbing knowledge like a sponge and asking questions that keep both Alucris and Iron on their toes. Why do people fear half-bloods? Kyle asks one evening as the three of them sit by the fire, Alucris reading aloud from a book of fairy tales. Because they don't understand them, Alucris explains patiently. Half-fae children have abilities that seem strange to those who live entirely in the mortal realm. Some people fear anything they don't understand. But you're not afraid of me. No, we're not, Iron says, pulling Kyle closer against his side. We think your abilities are interesting, not frightening. Can you show us? Alucris asks gently. Only if you want to, of course. Kyle looks between them uncertainly, then seems to make up his mind. He holds up his hand, and slowly, shadows begin to gather around his fingers like living smoke. With careful concentration, he shapes them into small figures, a wolf, a bat, a flower, each one perfectly detailed despite being made of nothing but darkness. That's incredible, Iron breathes, watching the shadow wolf pad across Kyle's palm. You're an artist, Kyle. You create beauty. You think so? The boy's face lights up with pride. The other families said it was evil. The other families were idiots, Alucris says firmly. Beauty comes in many forms, and yours is unique and wonderful. Over the following months, they settle into life as an unlikely family. Alucris continues his work as a keeper of knowledge and magical artifacts. Iron assists with research and translations, and Kyle serves as their apprentice and, more importantly, the heart of their strange household. The boy calls them both Papa without distinction, and the sound never fails to make Iron's heart swell with joy. But their peaceful existence is shattered one autumn morning when strangers appear at their gates. Iron senses them before they announce themselves. The familiar pack scent of his former home mixed with anger and righteous indignation. Through the fortress's magical defenses, he can see figures moving through the forest, more wolves than he's seen in one place since his exile. Pack wolves, he tells Alucris and Kyle as they gather in the main hall. At least a dozen of them, possibly more. They're not here for a friendly visit. Can you tell what they want? Alucris asks, his demeanor shifting into something more dangerous. Me, I think. They're angry about something they blame on me. Then we'll face them together, Alucris says firmly. You're not dealing with your former pack alone. When they open the gates, Iron finds himself face to face with members of his old pack, led by someone he had hoped never to see again. Rold stands at the front of the group, looking every inch the proud alpha he's always been. His winterstorm eyes are hard with condemnation, and his presence seems to command the attention of every wolf present. But he's not alone. Behind him stand other alphas from neighboring packs, their faces set in lines of grim determination. This isn't just a confrontation, it's a coordinated campaign. Iron, Rold says, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Or do you still use that name, despite bringing shame to it? I use the name I was born with, Iron replies, proud that his voice remains steady. What do you want, Rold? We want answers. The Borderlands have been experiencing magical disturbances for months. Twisted creatures, corrupted weather patterns, reality itself seeming to bend in unnatural ways. The trail leads here, to this fortress, to your unnatural alliance. His gaze shifts to Alucris, and Iron sees recognition flicker in his eyes. He knows what Alucris is, and he doesn't like it. You live with vampires now, one of the other pack leaders spits. You've betrayed everything our people stand for. I live with someone who treats me with respect and kindness, Iron replies. Something I never received from the pack. Respect. Rold laughs harshly. What respect does a vampire show its pet? You're nothing but a plaything to him, a curiosity to be used until he grows bored. The insult to both him and Alucris makes anger flare in Iron's chest. But before he can respond, Alucris steps forward. The temperature around them seems to drop several degrees, and shadows begin to gather at the vampire's feet. You will not speak to him that way, Alucris says, his voice carrying undertones of power that make even the Alpha Pack members shift nervously. Iron is my chosen mate, my partner in all things, and he deserves respect from anyone who enters my domain. Chosen mate. Rold's expression twists with something that might be jealousy. You mean claimed property. Vampires don't form bonds. They take what they want and discard it when they're finished. You seem to be confusing vampires with werewolf alphas. Alucris replies coolly. Iron chose me and I chose him in return. Neither of us was coerced. Neither of us was desperate. And neither of us settled for less than we deserved. The barb hits its mark. Rold's face darkens with rage, and several of the pack members behind him growl low in their throats. You've corrupted him, Rold snarls. Turned him against his own kind with your dark magic. I didn't turn him against anything, Alucris says. Your pack managed that all on their own when they cast out one of their most valuable members for the crime of being rejected by a coward. How dare you dash? How dare I what? Tell the truth. Alucris's power is becoming more visible now, shadows wreathing his hands as his calm facade begins to crack. You rejected your fated mate publicly, humiliated him in front of his entire community, and then allowed that community to exile him for your failure. And now you have the audacity to come here and suggest that he's the one who chose betrayal. The confrontation might have escalated into violence, but Kyle chooses that moment to appear in the doorway behind them. The pack members react to his presence with visible alarm. Half-fey children are the stuff of nightmares to most werewolves. Papa. Kyle's voice is small and frightened, and he's addressing both Iron and Alucris without distinction. Are these the bad people who hurt you before? Not all of them, Iron says gently, kneeling to Kyle's level. Some of them, yes, but don't worry, they're not going to hurt any of us. The child is fey-touched. One of the pack members whispers, and Iron can hear the fear in his voice. The corruption is spreading. First the Omega consorting with vampires. Now they're harboring monsters. He's not a monster, Iron says, standing and placing a protective hand on Kyle's shoulder. He's a little boy who needed a home and people who would care for him. We gave him both. This ends now, Rold declares, his alpha authority making his voice carry across the clearing. You will return with us to face judgment for the magical contamination you've caused. The vampire will be banished from our territories, and the Fey child will be dealt with according to ancient law. Ancient law? Iron feels ice form in his veins. You mean you want to kill him? Half-Fey creatures are abominations that corrupt everything they touch. It would be a mercy. The protective rage that sweeps through Iron is unlike anything he has ever experienced. This sweet, intelligent child who has brought so much joy into their lives. They want to murder him simply for existing. No, Iron says, and power flows through his voice, making the very air around them shimmer. You will not touch him. You will not threaten him. And you will leave our home immediately. Your home. Rold steps closer, trying to use his size and alpha presence to intimidate Iron. You have no home, Omega. You were cast out, rejected, abandoned. You're nothing but a stray that a vampire decided to keep as a pet. I am more than I ever was when I lived among the pack, Iron replies, meeting Rold's gaze steadily. I have work that matters, love that fulfills me, and a family that chooses me freely. What do you have, Rold? A pack that follows you out of fear rather than respect. Leadership built on intimidation rather than inspiration. A life so empty that you have to travel for days just to hurt someone who never wronged you. The words hit their mark, and Iron can see the impact in Rold's eyes. But the Alpha's pride won't let him back down. I made the right choice, Rold says, but there's doubt in his voice. The pack needs strong leadership. The pack needs wise leadership, Iron corrects. Strength without wisdom is just brutality. And brutality is what you're proposing now, the murder of a child whose only crime is being different. It's not murder, it's protection. Protection for whom? We're miles from any pack territory. Kal has never threatened anyone, has never done anything but try to survive in a world that hates him for circumstances beyond his control. Iron steps forward, no longer the timid Omega who had been broken by rejection. You want to kill him because his existence makes you uncomfortable. That's not protection. That's cowardice. The accusation strikes deep, and Iron sees Rold flinch. Around them, the other pack members are shifting nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the confrontation is taking. The magical disturbances dash one of them begins. Have nothing to do with us, Alucris interrupts. I've been monitoring the magical climate of this region for months. The disturbances you're experiencing are coming from the ancient ruins to the north, where someone has been attempting to wake powers that should remain dormant. If you want to solve your problem, that's where you need to look. You're lying. I'm an 800-year-old vampire who has made the study of magic his life's work. Alucris replies dryly. You're werewolves who probably can't tell the difference between active magic and residual traces. Which of us do you think is more qualified to make this assessment? The truth of his words is obvious to everyone present, but Rold refuses to back down. His pride and his prejudices are too deeply entrenched. Even if that's true, he says, it doesn't change what you are, what all of you are. Unnatural, wrong, an abomination that needs to be cleansed. If we're so unnatural, Iron asks quietly, then why are we happy? Why do we care for each other, protect each other, love each other? Why does our home feel more like a family than your pack ever did? The question catches Rold off guard, and for a moment, his mask of certainty slips. Through the pack bond that still connects him to his former community, Iron can feel the Alpha's confusion, his inability to reconcile his prejudices with the evidence in front of him. Because vampires are skilled at deception, Rold says finally, but the conviction is gone from his voice. Is that what you see when you look at us? Iron asks. Deception? Or do you see what you lost when you made your choice at the bonding ceremony? I lost nothing, Rold snaps, but his voice cracks slightly. I made the right choice for my pack. Did you? Or did you make the choice that felt safer? The choice that didn't require you to be vulnerable, to open your heart, to risk being hurt. Iron studies Rold's face, seeing the pain he's trying so hard to hide. I know what it feels like to be afraid, Rold. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear. And you think running away to live with vampires was courageous? I think building a new life from nothing was courageous. I think opening my heart to love again after being rejected was courageous. I think protecting a child who has no one else was courageous. Iron glances back at Alucris and Kyle, drawing strength from their presence. But most of all, I think choosing love over hate, acceptance over prejudice, and hope over despair was courageous. The silence that follows is heavy with unspoken emotions. Iron can feel the conflict raging within Rold, his alpha training warring with his personal desires, his prejudices battling against the evidence of his own eyes. This isn't over, Rold says finally, but the threat sounds hollow. The Alliance of Packs will not tolerate this corruption on our borders. Then the Alliance will have to learn tolerance, Alucris says firmly, because we're not going anywhere. This is our home, and we will defend it against anyone who threatens our family. Family? Rold's voice is bitter. You call this aberration a family? Yes, Iron says simply, because that's what it is. Not bound by blood or species or traditional bonds, but chosen freely and maintained through love and mutual respect. It's not the family I expected to have, but it's the one I choose every day. As if to emphasize his words, Kyle steps forward and takes both Iron's and Alucris's hands, his small fingers interlacing with theirs. The gesture is simple but powerful, a child claiming his parents, demonstrating the bonds that hold their unusual household together. We choose each other, Kyle says quietly, his young voice carrying surprising strength. Every day we choose to be a family. Isn't that what love is supposed to be? The innocence and wisdom in his words seems to pierce through even the pack's defenses. Several of the werewolves exchange uncertain glances, their certainty beginning to waver in the face of such obvious affection and devotion. But before anyone can respond, the situation takes a dramatic turn. Without warning, several of the pack members lunge forward, not toward Iron or Alucris, but toward Kyle. Their intention is clear: if they can't convince the adults to surrender, they'll take the child by force. The attack triggers every protective instinct Iron possesses. Power flows through him like nothing he's ever experienced, and suddenly the air around the fortress crackles with energy. His voice carries impossible authority as he shouts a single word, "Stop!" The effect is immediate and dramatic. The attacking werewolves freeze mid-lunge, their bodies rigid as if held by invisible chains. Around the clearing, the other pack members stagger as waves of compulsion wash over them, forcing them to their knees. "You will not touch him," Iron says, his voice echoing with power that seems to come from the very foundations of the earth. "You will not threaten him. You will not harm anyone under my protection." Beside him, Alucris stares in amazement. "Iron, how are you doing this?" "I don't know," Iron admits, but he can feel the magic flowing through him, connecting him to every living thing in the forest. "I can feel all of them, their fears, their doubts, their hidden shames, and I can make them understand." He turns his attention to the pack, and through the magic that now flows between them, he projects the emotions he had experienced during his exile, the loneliness, the rejection, the despair of being cast out by those who should have cared for him. One by one, the werewolves begin to understand, their expressions shifting from hostility to comprehension to shame. "This is what you did to me," Iron says, his voice carrying to every member of the pack. "This is what your prejudice and fear created. This is the pain you caused because you couldn't accept someone who was different." But he doesn't stop there. He also projects the joy he has found with Alucris and Kyle, the warmth of acceptance, the security of unconditional love, the happiness of being valued for who he truly is. He lets them feel what it's like to be part of a family that chooses each other daily, that supports each other through difficulties, that celebrates each other's differences instead of fearing them. "And this is what you could have," he continues. "This is what love looks like when it's not constrained by tradition or prejudice. This is what family feels like when it's built on acceptance rather than conformity." The effect on the pack is profound. Many of them are weeping openly, overwhelmed by the intensity of the emotions Iron is sharing. Others look around with new understanding, seeing their companions not as part of a unified force but as individuals with their own fears and desires. But Rold, whether through alpha stubbornness or genuine resistance to Iron's power, remains standing. "Enough," he snarls, raising his weapon. "I won't be swayed by vampire magic and omega tricks." "This isn't magic," Iron says sadly. "This is truth. This is what you threw away when you rejected our bond. This is what you've been missing all these years." "I chose strength over weakness," Rold insists. "I chose the good of the pack over personal desire." "You chose fear over love," Iron corrects. "And fear has made you into something your pack doesn't even recognize anymore." To prove his point, Iron projects Rold's emotions outward, letting the other pack members feel what is really driving their alpha. Not noble dedication to duty, but terror of vulnerability, fear of being seen as weak, and a loneliness so profound it's like a physical wound. The reaction is immediate and devastating. Several pack members step away from Rold, their expressions shifting from loyalty to pity. Others begin to question out loud whether following him into this fight had been the right choice. "You see," Iron says gently, "he's not the strong leader you think he is. He's a frightened man who has spent so long hiding his fears that he's forgotten how to be anything else." "Stop," Rold whispers, and for the first time since Iron has known him, his voice breaks. "Please, just stop." Iron could continue. He could destroy Rold completely, lay bare every secret shame and hidden weakness until the alpha is broken beyond repair. But as he looks at him, really looks at him, he sees not the alpha who rejected him, but a man who has been trapped by his own fears for so long that he has forgotten what it feels like to be free. "I forgive you," Iron says quietly, and he means it. "I forgive you for the rejection, for the pain, for trying to destroy the happiness I found after you cast me aside. But I won't let you hurt my family." The power he has been wielding gradually subsides, leaving him exhausted but strangely at peace. Around them, the members of the pack are picking themselves up, looking around with the confused expressions of people waking from a shared dream. The corruption they spoke of, One of them says slowly, I don't see it. I see. I see love. Real love, freely given and freely received. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe different doesn't always mean dangerous. Another adds, maybe we should have tried to understand instead of just fearing. Rold looks around at his pack, his followers who are now questioning everything he has taught them, and Iron sees something break inside him. Not his spirit, but the rigid control that has been strangling his heart for so long. I was wrong, Rold says, his voice barely audible. About all of it. About you, about what strength really means, about what leadership should look like. He looks directly at Iron. I was a coward, and I made you pay for my cowardice. You were afraid, Iron says. There's a difference. Is there? I hurt you because I was too scared to admit that I cared about you. I led my pack here to hurt your family because I was too proud to admit that I had made a mistake. Rold drops his weapon and falls to his knees. I have no right to ask, but can you ever forgive me? Looking down at him, this man who had once seemed so powerful and intimidating, Iron feels the last of his anger fade away. Rold isn't his enemy anymore. He's just someone who has been trapped by his own limitations until they nearly destroyed everything good in his life. I already have, Iron says. But Rold, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending that what happened didn't matter. And it doesn't mean I'm coming back. I know, Rold says. I wouldn't ask that of you. You found something here that I could never give you. Something I was too broken to even understand. He looks over at Alucris and Kyle. They're your real family now. Yes, they are. Rold nods slowly, then stands and turns to address his pack. We're leaving, he announces. There's no corruption here. No threat to our lands or our people. There's just a family trying to live in peace, and we have no right to disturb that. But Alpha, one of the younger pack members, protests. The Alliance said dash. The Alliance was wrong, Rold says firmly. And so was I. We came here looking for monsters and found only love. That should tell us something about our own hearts. As the pack begins to disperse, preparing to return to their own territories, Rold approaches Iron one last time. I want you to know, he says quietly, that seeing you happy, it means everything to me. I destroyed our bond because I thought it would make me stronger, but all it did was make me empty. You deserve the love you found here. You deserve love too, Iron tells him. Real love, with someone who sees all of you and chooses you anyway. But you'll never find it until you stop being afraid of your own heart. Maybe someday, Rold says with a sad smile. But for now, I need to learn how to be the kind of leader my pack actually needs, not the kind I thought they wanted. After the pack is gone, the three of them stand together in the courtyard of their fortress, processing what has just happened. The confrontation that they had feared would destroy them has instead revealed strengths they didn't know they possessed and confirmed the depth of the bonds between them. That was incredible, Kyle says, his eyes shining with admiration. Papa, I didn't know you could do that with magic. Neither did I, Iron admits. I think it was something that only became possible because I had something worth protecting. The power of love, Alucris says, wrapping his arms around both Iron and Kyle. It's the oldest magic in existence, and often the strongest. Are they really gone for good? Kyle asks. Or will they change their minds and come back? I don't think they'll be back, Iron says. But even if they are, we'll be ready. We're stronger together than any of us are alone. Speaking of being together, Alucris says, his tone becoming more formal, there's something I've been wanting to discuss with both of you. Iron and Kyle look at him curiously. Iron and I have been partners in all but the most official sense. Alucris continues. We love each other. We've committed to building a life together. And we've sworn to protect and care for each other. But there's never been a formal ceremony, a public declaration of our choice. Iron's heart begins to race as he realizes where Alucris is going with this. I know that vampire bonding customs are different from werewolf traditions, Alucris says, taking Iron's hands in his. But I want everyone to know that what we have is real and permanent. I want to make it official. Are you asking me to marry you? Iron asks, hardly daring to believe it. I'm asking you to be my partner in every sense of the word, Alucris says. To bind our lives together formally and completely. To make the family we've created official and recognized. What about me? Kyle asks, and Iron can hear the worry in his voice. Would I still belong here? You would be our son, Alucris says firmly. Not by blood, but by choice. If you want that. I want that more than anything, Kyle whispers, tears of joy streaming down his face. Then yes, Iron says, his own eyes filling with tears. Yes, I want to marry you. I want to make this official. I want the whole world to know that we chose each other. The ceremony they plan is unlike anything that has ever been performed before. It combines elements from vampire bonding traditions, werewolf pack customs, and rituals from Kyle's Fey heritage, creating something entirely unique to their family. They hold it at the autumn equinox, when day and night are perfectly balanced, a symbol of the harmony they have found between different worlds and different kinds of love. The ceremony takes place in the courtyard of their fortress, decorated with flowers and candles and symbols from all their various traditions. There are no guests in the traditional sense. They have no family or friends to invite from the outside world. But the creatures of the forest seem to approve of their union. Birds gather on the walls to witness their vows, and even some of the more magical residents of the mountains appear at the edges of the courtyard, drawn by the power of the emotions they're sharing. I choose you, Iron says to Alucris as they stand together beneath the stars. Not because fate decreed it, but because you showed me what love really looks like. You gave me a home when I had none, purpose when I felt worthless, and a family when I thought I would always be alone. I choose you, Alucris replies, because you brought light into a life that had grown dark with loneliness, because you showed me that strength comes in many forms, and the gentlest heart can be the bravest of all. They exchange rings forged from metals that have been touched by both moonlight and shadow, symbols of the different worlds they come from and the new world they're creating together. Then they turn to Kyle, who is practically vibrating with excitement. And we choose you, they say together, as our son, our family, our heart. We promise to love you, protect you, and support you as you grow into whoever you're meant to become. I choose both of you too, Kyle says solemnly. As my fates, my family, my home. I promise to love you and help you and make our family proud. The moment the final vows are spoken, something shifts in the air around them. It isn't magic, exactly, but it's power of a different kind, the power of commitment freely given, of love consciously chosen, of family deliberately created. It's done, Alucris says softly. We're officially a family now. We were always a family, Iron corrects. Now we just have the legal recognition to prove it. 1 year later, Iron stands on the balcony of their fortress, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in shades of gold and rose. In his arms, he holds a scroll that bears the seal of the Alliance of Light, a new organization that has formed to promote cooperation between different species and magical communities. The appointment is official, he tells Alucris and Kyle as they join him on the balcony. I'm now the official ambassador of interspecies relations for the mountain territories. Ambassador Iron, Kyle says, testing out the title with obvious pride. That sounds important. It is important, Alucris agrees, wrapping his arms around his husband from behind. You'll be helping other families like ours, other beings who don't fit into traditional categories. You'll be making the world a safer place for everyone who's ever been rejected or exiled. The work is challenging but deeply fulfilling. Iron travels throughout the region, mediating disputes between different communities, helping to establish safe havens for mixed families, and teaching young people about the magic that flows through all living things. He's particularly passionate about working with Omega werewolves, showing them that their gentleness and empathy are strengths, not weaknesses. Kyle, now 12 and growing tall and strong, serves as his assistant on many of these missions. The boy's unique heritage makes him an ideal bridge between different communities, and his natural wisdom often helps resolve conflicts that would otherwise seem intractable. I've been thinking, Kyle says one evening as they return from a particularly successful mediation. Maybe I want to be an ambassador too when I grow up. Help other kids who don't have families. I think you'd be excellent at it, Iron says, his heart swelling with pride. You have the most important qualification. You understand what it feels like to be different, and you know that different doesn't mean wrong. As for Alucris, he has thrown himself into the work of the Alliance with enthusiasm that surprises even him. His centuries of accumulated knowledge and his network of contacts across the supernatural world make him invaluable in establishing the new organization. More importantly, his relationship with Iron has shown other vampires that meaningful connections are possible, leading to a gradual shift in vampire society toward greater openness and cooperation. I never thought I'd say this, he tells Iron one night as they sit together by the fire, but I think I'm actually enjoying politics. There's something deeply satisfying about using all that accumulated power and influence to actually help people instead of just accumulating more power for its own sake. Power with purpose. Iron agrees. It suits you. The fortress itself has become something of a pilgrimage site for mixed families and interspecies couples. They come seeking advice, protection, or simply the reassurance that they're not alone in the world. Iron and Alucris welcome them all, turning their home into an informal embassy for the growing community of beings who refuse to be constrained by traditional boundaries. Look at what we've built, Iron muses one evening as they watch a group of their guests, a werewolf-vampire couple, a human-fae family, and several other unlikely combinations, sharing dinner and stories in their great hall. A year ago, we were just three outcasts hiding in the mountains. Now we're the center of a movement that's changing the world. We're not changing the world, Alucris corrects gently. We're just showing it what was always possible. Love doesn't recognize species barriers. Families don't have to be bound by blood. And strength comes in many forms. These truths have always existed. We're just making them visible. Do you think it will last? Kyle asks, looking up from the shadow creatures he's been crafting more complex now, almost lifelike in their detail. Do you think people will keep choosing love over fear? I think, Iron says, reaching over to ruffle the boy's hair, that every generation will have to make that choice for themselves. But we've proven that it's possible. We've shown that different kinds of beings can live together peacefully, can love each other completely, can build something beautiful together. And that's all we can do. Provide an example and hope others choose to follow it. Besides, Alucris adds with a smile, we have each other. Whatever challenges come, we'll face them together. All of us as a family. As if to emphasize his words, Kyle moves to sit between them, automatically reaching for both their hands. It's a gesture that has become natural over the years. The three of them connected, supporting each other, drawing strength from their chosen bonds. I love you both so much, Kyle says quietly. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for showing me what family really means. Thank you for completing us. Iron replies, his voice thick with emotion. You taught us that love multiplies when it's shared, that families grow stronger when they welcome new members, and that the most beautiful things in life often come from the most unexpected places. Outside their windows, the first snow of winter begins to fall, coating the mountains in pristine white. But inside their fortress, warmth and light and love create a sanctuary that no cold can touch. They have built something unprecedented, a family that transcends every traditional boundary, a love that conquered fear and prejudice, a home that welcomes all who seek acceptance and understanding. This is their story, a story of rejection transformed into acceptance, exile transformed into homecoming, and fear transformed into the kind of love that makes anything possible. It began with the moon's rejection, with a public humiliation that should have broken them. Instead, it led them to each other, to a love that was chosen rather than fated, built rather than decreed, and strengthened by every challenge it faced. And while their particular tale may be ending, the revolution they've started continues. Across the world, other families are forming that don't fit traditional molds. Other couples are choosing love over convention. Other children are finding homes where their differences are celebrated rather than feared. The alliance of light grows stronger each day, and the world becomes a little more accepting, a little more understanding, a little more loving. In the end, that's what true strength looks like, not the power to force others to conform, but the courage to be yourself completely and the wisdom to create space for others to do the same. It's the recognition that love comes in many forms, that families can be built rather than just born, and that the greatest victories are won not through conquest but through acceptance. This is the legacy of the rejected Omega, the ancient vampire, and the half-fey child who became their heart, a legacy of chosen love, deliberate family, and the revolutionary idea that being different isn't just acceptable, it's beautiful.